All right, welcome back here. We're in our finals here for March of the Machine. It's our top eight Megadraft. We got Adam, who's we've been following since his draft, trying to run the table here against Pierre-Marc with his red blue spells deck that we were pretty excited by in our pool review, and this hand looks pretty nice. What's Adam got over there? Is Bob, are you there?
Look at me. It's been 3 years in like the Zoom sort of thing, and I'm still muting myself. So,
Okay.
Adam does have a keepable hand here. It looks like 4 lands with an obscura storefront, so something to do in turn one. We've got the Thunderous Orator, which we've seen, a cut down or a cut short, which we've seen in hand, never actually cast yet. And then, of course, the Moon Circuit Hacker, which could be very powerful for gaining some card advantage.
Yeah, so Pierre-Marc had a very reactive hand. He said, I want to try and maybe be a little bit more proactive. So he's setting it back. He had a Disdainful Stroke, a Thrill of Possibility, 2 Temporal Cleansings, and 3 lands. Um, so maybe just a little bit clunkier than he would have liked. And he's going here instead for the bit more proactive hand. Rouse Reinforcements, Raging Crunch, which is a 3 mana 4/3 that can't attack alone, and a Scorching Dragonfire and 3 lands. So he's going to be able to play his Rouse Reinforcements. He's going to be able to play his 3 mana 4/3 and then hopefully start attacking with that right away.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we want to see. The reactive hand, the disdainful stroke, that wasn't going to end up doing very well here, but seeing things like rouse reinforcements, that's going to be significantly better.
I'll just ask. I think it's Maxime there to mute when you have the chance. All right. So
Wow.
I mean, this is quite clearly a telegraphed trick here, but Pierre-Marc says I'll trade by 3/3 for your trick, and no problem at all.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's just a random two mana play for whatever trick it is. It saves some life. It gets the trick out of hand, and what it also does is it concerns that Adam's not playing anything else. He essentially just played a removal spell.
Yeah, he traded his turn for that 3/3, which wasn't going to attack anyway anytime soon. And he's played a Raging Crunch, which in the olden days this card would say can't attack or block alone, but now it just says can't attack alone. So this thing can most definitely just stand there and block a creature that's attacked into it.
I think that's what really makes it playable rather than something that isn't very playable at all.
Yeah.
Of course, we see Adam continuing to hit his powerful cards. Exotic Pets hits the stack after drawing it off the top of the library.
That's going to be an annoying one because, I mean, Pierre-Marc has Chill of the Grave, which is tap a creature for a turn, basically draw a card, and Scorching Dragonfire, neither of which you really ever want to spend on a fish token. But we'll see, because instead of playing Rouse Reinforcements, he's left up the Chill of the Grave. But
I don't know exactly when the right choice is, but whenever Adam wants, he can cash in one of these fish to get the ninjutsu trigger with Moon Circuit Hacker, right? So it is certainly something he can choose to do.
I think these fish are too valuable for that. I think a 1/1 that can attack every single turn reliably, no matter what, is more powerful than just a 2/1 that draws a card once. And he's
likely true. I'm
gonna look.
One thing that could be happen is after he attacks, but after blocks are declared, let's say a removal spell is cast, then he can kind of get in for free there, like with the ninjutsu. Is certainly something we can look towards.
Yeah, that's a possibility, of course. So what's Adam looking at here?
2 lands are going to the bottom. We're going to take the Silver Flame Squire and a second Tamiyo's Epiphany into hand.
No rabble rousing yet? We've just come to expect rabble rousing on 5 every game at this point.
I'm sure it's sitting safely at the top of his library.
Yeah, so he's got the rouse reinforcements now, and so Pierre-Marc's got okay cards in hand, but just they're unfortunately not really set up to fight against these fish or to maybe race them. We'll see. He has Scorching Dragonfire, he has Stoke the Flames, and a Moon Circuit Hacker. So high quality cards, but these fish are just going to poke in. So Adam's got the life advantage. He's got more cards in hand. So we'll see what he chooses to do here. So he's got another flyer here that could send up the Orator. Well, that sends the Orator up into the air regardless when it attacks. So
true. And eventually, if the board continues to go a little bit wider, the Orator ends up getting flying on his own, then the Pegasus can send something else into the air, and it can really sort of start to snowball.
Yeah, so Pierre-Marc's considering if he wants to use his premium removal here, Stoke the Flames on something, he decides not to. He could have fired it off there with the Convoke. 1 mana, 3 creatures. So
Notably,
he's
one thing to kind of consider is the fact that if he was considering attacking this turn, removing the flyer is going to be what he wants to do ahead of time. He likes to go with the Scorching Dragonfire because the cut short that's in Adam's hand is now going to be essentially dead on the turn. He was sort of holding that up if the Raging Crunch comes in.
Yeah, so now the Crunch and the one and at least one can come in. He has a Moon Circuit Hacker, which he may opt to ninja in here.
Yeah, and I think that we talked about it with the fish maybe not being the best choice, but these Rouse Reinforcements tokens, I mean, that seems significantly better to turn into a Moon City hack.
Yeah, the 1/1 token with that doesn't necessarily always get in is very expendable. Like the fish, to me, I would be looking to keep, but but these 1/1s not so much. Yeah, so we apologize if his stream's a little grainy here, but we could still make out what's going on here. We see the Moon Circuit Hacker coming in. Yeah, and he says this 1/1 has served its purpose. I'm gonna cash it in for a card and a 2/1.
I mean, something to consider is the idea that Adam's been attacking a lot more, but Adam's only done 4, 5, 6 damage, whatever it's been. Whereas a huge attack for 7 coming in from Pierre-Marc, some burn spells we know are in hand. It could be
he got crunched. So a nice draw here from Pierre-Marc from that Moon Circuit Hacker is an Abrade, a card he can cast here and is going to happily attempt to get rid of this.
The Silver Flame Squire, the +2/+2, and untapping it looks like that's going to get taken care of here then.
Yeah,
then he's going to take the full 4 damage.
The adventure half is expensive. Like 3 mana is very expensive for a combat trick, but the fact that you get a creature stapled on for very cheap makes it worth it.
I think one of the
1 or 2 mana for a +2/+2 effect, but
I think one of the exciting parts here as well is that he can end up buying it back if it goes unblocked with the ninjutsu from the Moon Circuit Hacker.
Ooh, ninjing your adventure creatures to then send them on another adventure. That's
how many times have you seen that happen?
I haven't, but today
me neither. We could hope.
That's what you get when you combine these cards. You get these fun little interactions. Ninja back your adventure creature, send it on an adventure, bring it back. So very cool. We'll see if it ends up getting to that. But while we're discussing all that, this game is going to be very close here.
And like we've seen amongst the entire top 8 it's very fast, right? It's what, turn 6 or 7, they've got some things on board. We're already down to 10, and we're really considering where and when is lethal coming. It feels like it's about 3 or 4 turns away for either player, and it's really kind of at that tipping point. Whoever can sort of deploy the cards in their hand, I don't think we're in for a very long game.
The thing is, this Chill of the Grave, I don't know what's in Adam's hand. I'm sure you're about to tell me, but this Chill of the Grave and this Stoke the Flames that Pierre-Marc have in hand, look to potentially be something that's going to swing it firmly in his direction, or he hopes that.
Once again, we see that Adam's been holding up the cut down,
which again
playing around it.
Yeah, well, I don't know if so much playing around it as he's just Pierre-Marc is just doing his thing, and by doing his thing and tapping down the creatures, he's nerfing this cut short, probably without even realizing it. Honestly,
maybe not. Yeah.
The
7th land definitely means that the Tamiyo's Epiphany that Adam's got in hand should allow him to cast that and still hold up the cut short without actually holding up any creatures.
Yeah, so
that's going to be good.
So what Pierre-Marc did in not attacking with the 1/1 is he's left open his Stoke the Flames because he realized, I want to maybe be able to throw this at his face and then see what I untap and draw and have all my mana next turn.
So an island. An island, not great here, but we've got Wander's Intervention, Archangel Elspeth, and then the Wanderlight Geist, I think, is the 2/3 flyer.
Well, none of those are rabble rousing, so it's 4 on the bottom, right?
True. True, okay. But a pretty premium removal spell is going to be great for that crunch.
Yeah, Elspeth is probably good enough, too. But so he's kept 3 cards there. Presumably the island went to the bottom and everything else stayed right there on top.
That's correct.
Found their way into his hand, and... so he's got the card advantage here. So, we know Pierre-Marc has 4 surprise damage here that Adam doesn't know about. But he's just going to use the cut short now. He says, I'm using it now. I don't want to play around any tricks. You already turned
Hmm.
off my my cut short kind of unknowingly before. So I'm just going to do that. And Pierre-Marc decided not to stoke the flames on anything. He left himself the option of doing it, but said there's nothing worth doing it now. He's not, without the crunch, I can't get him dead fast enough to attack
Yeah.
his life total. He may opt to kill the 2/2 here to stem this a bit. We'll see.
Yeah, I think obviously holding on to it to see if possibly, he doesn't know about the Elspeth, but if Adam were to, let's say, commit something as big as that or something similar, a pump spell or whatever, Stoke the Flames obviously can get some value, but it looks like he's just sort of taking care of this 2/2 that's been a bit annoying throughout the
Oh,
entire
yeah.
game.
Yeah, we've seen Pierre-Marc ostensibly doing what his deck wants to do, but he did have to mulligan, and now we're seeing Adam take over with his card advantage, finding him these bombs that are going to win the game.
Yeah, I
Pretty
mean,
quick.
two Tamiyo's Epiphanies. We kind of talked about it in the draft, but that sort of card selection is huge. Obviously, in a 40 card format, just as big in a
Yeah.
60 card format like this, and it
Another
really dug him towards his bomb.
and a second mountain in hand is gonna wrap this one up here. So Adam is close to running the table, and by running the table, I mean not even losing a game so far. And we'll see if he can continue that into the next game here.
I mean, he's got a couple of really powerful cards. I think we've seen the fish in almost every single game, and then either an Elspeth or a rabble rousing. So when you obviously you put the cards in your deck to play them, but sometimes you just got to run hot. And if today's your day, looks like you're going to be the one coming out on
And
top.
we know Pierre-Marc has some power cards. We saw that when he was building his deck. Or
Oh yeah.
after the draft, he has Krenko, Sarkhan from War of the Spark. He has the
Ooh, that could
Thundering
be an interesting one, right? Because
Thundering
obviously that has
Raiju.
the passive text, right? So if you get a dragon out, either the Atsushi, I think Pierre-Marc had,
Uh,
or the down.
no, he did. He
Or was
didn't
that
end up
somebody
with
else?
one, but yeah.
Okay. So he's got the down ticking on Sarkin, make a 1/1. That's going to stop the something like the fish, which would traditionally
Yeah,
be a little bit more difficult to
Kings.
deal with.
Yeah,
That's
the
going to stop
Kings.
them stone cold, right? So that's going to be a little bit of a card we might look out for.
Yeah, so Pierre-Marc went with, I guess, a bit of a more aggressive build than maybe we thought with the spells. We thought maybe it was going to be more spells-based controlish, but he's got like double Rimrock Knight, double Reinforced Ronin, which is the 1-mana 2/2 that brings itself back to hand at end of turn
Okay,
that you can
sure.
throw away for a card later on. So he's going more for the aggro and then tempoing out the opponent with like double Chill of the Grave, double Temporal Cleansing. Just trying to get a bunch of, kind of dorky attackers in. They can get a bunch of damage and then, use bounce and burn to get in the last points here.
One thing to be noted is that on all the games we've seen Adam play so far, he's been the aggressor. He's been the beatdown. He's been either on the play or the one sort of, talking about the tempo of the game. If, let's say, Pierre-Marc can actually establish that he's the aggressor in this matchup, I don't really know how much, Adam's play he has. We obviously know he's got some combat tricks, like the Silver Flame Squire. We've got things like Kill Shot and Cut Short to really sort of help with that. When you remember an Outflank, which is currently still on the sideboard, some of those items really could kind of help him regain that tempo. But, Adam's deck is more of a racing deck. It's not a controlling deck.
Nope, and neither is Pierre-Marc. But there's a couple of cards I was surprised to see him have in his sideboard, not in his main deck. One being Heartfire, which is 2 mana. You sacrifice a creature
Okay.
to deal 4 damage to anything. I mean, he has these reinforced Ronins, these Rimrock Knights, these Rouse reinforcement tokens hanging around. Also, the Rowan and Will from Strixhaven. The Rowan side not very good, but the Will side for 5 mana, you basically take away something's. You basically turn a creature into an O2 until your next turn, or you draw 2
Mm-hmm.
cards. Seems like absolutely perfect to slot in. His curve is not high. He does not have a lot of cards that cost more than 4 mana, so it's not a curve issue. Maybe it's just maybe he just realizes he thinks he sees himself as more aggressive than that. He doesn't want just a 5 mana thing that draws a
Sure.
card, but that card's really really strong. The Rowan side is kind of just like it looks poor and it is poor, but the backside, the Will
Yeah.
side is really really nice. So a bit
Yeah. You
surprised to
play
see
you play the
this.
Rowan side. You play the Rowan side because it's just got the discount to your spells more than
Yeah.
anything else.
Well,
But obviously the Will side is what gains you
has
the.
the Will side has the discount too, though.
Yeah, but if you're going to play it on turn 5 after you've already played your spells,
Yeah.
you don't get as much of the discount.
So
Either way.
a nice little hand from Pierre-Marc here, a bunch of threats. So he opted not to run out his Rimrock Knight there on turn 2. Maybe I think he wants to use it as a pump, potentially for one of his flyers here. He has both of his Xeric Strobe Knights in hand. He also has a Krenko. Getting that
Wow.
up extra power makes more tokens when it attacks. And he's got two
Absolutely.
Antagonize, which is a 2 mana. I believe it's
Holy cow.
+4/+3. I
Wow.
believe for 2 mana trick here. So he's just looking to punch in for big amounts of damage here.
One thing that we see here from Adam is this is the first time that we've seen him without a really aggressive start. He's got his cut short and his squire, which he elected to run on turn 2, but that's because he doesn't really have a whole lot of extra gas. He's got the Sage of the Falls, 3 other lands, and then another Tamiyo's Epiphany that he's likely going to hopefully use to find
Yeah.
some additional threats here.
This is the slowest hand we've seen from him yet. Here, notably, no fourth land here for Pierre-Marc, so he will not be deploying his Thundering Raiju. And if Adam was leaving up cut short, he's barking up the wrong tree here with these vigilance creatures that will only become
He
tapped.
was holding it up.
They'll only become tapped if he ends up casting 2 spells using the ability. But for now, these flyers are just gonna peck in for damage.
Yeah, we did just pick up the Weatherlight Spirit, or the Wanderlight Spirit.
So
Excuse me.
3 mana 2/3 flying, but can only block flyers, which in this case is the only creatures the opponent has. So,
But the Tamiyo's Epiphany, just the idea of using your mana and finding whatever you need is looking like it's going to be very helpful for him. And Archangel Elspeth on top of the library and Attempted by the Auric, both of those going to hand. Can't cast the latter, but we got lots of time.
Okay, so he's opting for Krenko here rather than the Raiju. So Raiju actually just represents a ton of damage. But so does the Rimrock.
No way to give
here.
haste, right?
Well, the Raiju does have haste itself, right? So the Raiju would come in, it would attack for 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, I think.
Yeah, it looks like going for a little bit.
Right?
Looks like going for a little bit more value, because if you can end up putting the 1/1 counter on the Krenko, then that's going to end up making even more goblins.
Yeah, and I mean dealing 6 damage and adding 3 bodies is also completely fine here. So he said I'll save the Raiju for next turn to maybe
I think taking the opportunity to double spell while your opponent's tapped out, and obviously end up using the Xeric Strobe Knight, that seems pretty powerful to me.
Yeah, with these Antagonize in hand, the Krenko could get kind of silly here if he opts to go down that route.
I suppose it does.
I don't think you want to antagonize the kingpin of Tin Street. That is not the person you want to antagonize. It's probably the last person you want to antagonize.
Well, I think it's really flavorful, because the thing itself that you're not terribly worried about, you can always one-on-one jump the Krenko, but it's all the goblins he brings with you on Tin Street that really sort of takes things down.
Well, yeah, in his previous incarnation, he was the mob boss, so...
It's like really debating here between Archangel Elspeth from Adam's hand, but elects to go with the Weatherlight Geist.
Yeah, he says, I want to block these flyers. I just can't afford not to. So he's left up his
and once again we're holding up the cut short.
So this is where Pierre-Marc has to decide if he wants to go for the Raiju or if he wants to go for antagonizing multiple things. Yeah,
I mean, you normally think of 2 mana when you're thinking of this kind of stuff. So I don't know if he's necessarily going around cut short, but it wouldn't surprise me if something like the Wanderer's Arrow or Divine Arrow, that kind of thing, is on his radar.
Yeah, so he's going to just send in everything here. He's playing the Rimrock Knight first, so that when he casts Antagonize, he'll then be able to activate his Strobe Knights.
Mm-hmm. And holding up that Antagonize is more of a combat trick rather than getting a bunch of goblins. Looks like that's obviously the case.
Okay, so, poor Krenko is going to get cut short here. But
before he even got to see a goblin on the field.
Yeah, so he got 1 goblin out of this. So now he's going to antagonize. He's going to get him down to 6. He's going to make 2 more 2/2s, and we know Adam doesn't have a board wipe, so Elspeth is a powerful card, but not quite powerful enough to face down this 10 bodies or whatever he's got here. 8 creatures. So we saw Adam go wide to great impact earlier, and Pierre-Marc says, well, I can do that too.
Yeah.
Make it tokens, getting in for flying. So, I mean, there's a reason these 2 decks are in the finals. They are, Pierre-Marc's was one we were looking out. That was one of the standouts when we were going through the pools. We said this one is definitely one to watch, and, here he is in the finals. So we're
You
getting.
know, it's really interesting to note, and I think it might be the smallest little bit of luck that Adam has here. Both of the players who were on the play seemed like they were extremely in favor of each other. So him being on the play in game one, winning game one means that he loses game two on the draw, and then maybe comes back on game three on the play again. In theory, that means that he's probably primed for a win here. But obviously, it's going to depend on draw and obviously play decisions as well.
Looks like maybe I sent some telepathic vibes to him. He's reading, rereading Rowan and Will there. Another card I'm absolutely shocked that he's not playing is the Crackle with Power. That card's just crazy,
Well,
crazy good.
it's 5 mana, 5 damage, right?
Yeah, but for
Or
eight
you have to get to eight
for
mana, you
eight
get
mana, you
10
get to
damage.
deal 10 damage to two things, and I mean, I think you still play it. I mean, yes, obviously, your goal is to be aggressive and get the opponent dead before you get there. But 5 mana for 5 damage is to one target is not where you want it at, but it's acceptable as a fail case for a card that can outright just win the game if you get more mana.
True, true.
Card's
It is the floor,
crazy
right?
powerful. So
It does remove something like Elspeth if necessary, especially right after Elspeth is played. Another thing is like if your opponent's at 7, 8, 9, you've picked them down to a part. You can end of turn sort of stoke the flames and then untap and crackle with power in order to really finish them off and maybe even steal a game that you wouldn't normally have won.
yeah, and I mean it's obviously not in his game plan to cast a card for 8 mana, but you don't always get to follow your game plan to a T every game, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are
It
games
certainly means
where
that he's going to have outs
you
in
fall
some cases where
behind,
he
you
normally
you
wouldn't.
flood. Like his deck can very well deal 10 damage and then can get stonewalled, and then they're just sitting there. He just finds
Mm-hmm.
that card and can win out of nowhere in a game that looks like the opponent turned it around. So I have to ask him about that later. But look, he's got this far. He's in the finals. He's playing for the crown. So
I'm not going to question him.
he knows what's up. We're sitting on this side of the fence for a reason. So a nice hand here from Pierre-Marc here. A braid. Enthusiastic Study, which is a pump spell that gives trample and also
Mm-hmm.
learns, and those two Xeric Strobe Knights again.
Back. Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah, so this is already potentially going to be an uphill climb for Adam. Did he take a mulligan there? Is that what we saw?
He did have to. He had two lands, neither of which were islands, so the 3 blue cards in his hand were going to be dead. Now, as we see a Mulda 6, he had 4 lands, tossed 1 plains back. We're going to see the Strix coming in on turn 2, and he's going to likely hold up the Mirror Shell Crab activation on turn 3.
Okay.
So if Pierre-Marc goes for one of the Xerix Knights, looks like the Crab is likely going to be able to nab it right away.
Okay, he does have a backup one, and he's trying to rouse reinforcements that he could fire off here. Yeah, he has it a braid, but he says I'm not abrading this Strix at least.
Yeah, the reinforcements don't look particularly good in the face of the Strix, but at the same time, like, what else are you going to do, right?
Yeah, he does have Enthusiastic Study, which gives +3/+1 trample, and Adam says, "Look, I mulliganed. I don't want to fall behind. I'm just gonna block here."
Yeah, the last card I didn't get to in his hand is the Tamio's Epiphany, which kind of allows him to unmulligan and get some really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah, that can catch you back up on cards real quick, especially with all the selection. Looks like the Crab's gonna get rid of this. Adam is probably very
He
happy about
hesitated
that.
for a moment, thought about it, obviously taking his time in the finals here, but elected to do so and actually counter the Crab or counter the
So
Xerix
here
Knight.
comes the Epiphany. We'll see if being able to hit for 2 with the Strix makes him want to attack. But still a good chance
Apparently,
of
we
that.
should call this Elspeth's Epiphany because sitting on the top of his deck is Archangel Elspeth again.
He's got a knack of finding that and rabble rousing today. So
Yeah, another Tamiya's Epiphany, and then of course we saw this in another game earlier, Barbarian Books, which is a 5 mana
Okay.
card, eventually gets reduced to 3 mana to kind of grip tide something.
yeah.
Is quite powerful. Good stuff.
Yeah, so here comes the Strobe Knight back again. Second one. I'm sure Adam is not thrilled to see that. And he gets to attack in here. So yeah, so Elspeth won't really be able to defend itself that well here because he has Enthusiastic Study. A Braid can get rid of the flyer, and Enthusiastic Study can just finish off the Elspeth with the +3/+1 here.
I'm not blocking the 2/2 flyer with the Strix, and
Yeah.
so there's certainly something to be said about attacking with it, but it looks like he's going to hold off hopefully the ground forces with it. We know that not to be the case, but obviously Adam's got to try to play that way.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even have to abrade anything. He can just Enthusiastic Study +3/+1 on his Xerix here, and that'll do the Elspeth in on its own.
I mean, one thing to just sort of think about would be something like in a forest dispersal or
Mm-hmm.
another unsummon, of course, maybe spell pierce to just sort of play around. We know that Adam doesn't have it, but obviously those are the things that Pierre-Marc likely has going through his head.
I think we are stigmatized by March of the Machines. Every time your opponent passed with a blue mana up, you just assume it's Farah's Dispersal. So I
Well,
mean, there was only one
yeah,
pack. There was only one pack of March of the Machine, and we know Adam didn't end up with one. But yeah, it's our March of the Machine brain that says, "Oh, one blue mana, it has to be Dispersal," because from my experience playing in draft, they always had it.
yeah, absolutely. Of course, they always have it. One thing to just kind of remember, though, is obviously when you're playing in the finals, you have to kind of consider every single way you can lose. Now, when you're playing March of the Machines draft or whatever it is, like you only have 3, 4 tricks, maybe even one to play around. Here, you have to consider 6, 7 different sets. Hopefully try to remember even if you played them in the first place. So maybe you sort of shrug and say, well, if he's got it, then he's got it, and I might lose, but I really struggle to think that that's the way that you can kind of go about
So he's
things.
going for the cleansing here, so he can both kill the Elspeth and make a token with his Xerax Strobe Knight here.
Unfortunately, this does sort of play into Spell Pierce, which we know is certainly something that was open, but it's going to work out well for Pierre-Marc.
I mean, worst comes to worst, he spell pierces it. He still gets in 2 damage on the Elspeth, and he still gets to make a token. So it's like, he could survive through a counter spell there, and he gets to get his only lesson, which is the Introduction to Prophecy, and Elspeth is down by the wayside, and he put the Strix on top, even though it's really just not holding back these tutus unless he has a spell to back it up with.
That's true. Now it does obviously hold back the 1/1s, which certainly seems like something that's going on. It looks like we're going to hold up. We're going to use the Tammy's Epiphany, but drew an aerial boost for the turn, which hopefully can allow our 1/1 lifelink side from the Elspeth in order to snag and kill off the Xerix Strobe Knight. We see on top of the deck the planes going to the bottom. We've got the Strix, which he's considering, I think, and then also 2 kill spells and Kill Shot and Wanderer's Intervention.
Okay,
So
yeah.
maybe one or both of those get a hold on.
Yeah, so aerial boost will get got by the Abrade in Pierre-Marc's hand here, which he can then, along with his Introduction to Prophecy, use to assure another 2/2 token. So I played with Xerix Strobe Knight a lot. I had one in my opening pool in League and picked up a second one within the first week. So I spent the remainder of the league playing with 2 of those. So I'm very familiar with the power level of that, especially in turn 3.
It's been extremely powerful in both draft and sealed, and it certainly is this is one of those signpost sort of uncommons. Even though it's not 2 colors, it very much feels great in the Knights deck. It feels great in the blue-red spells deck. I mean, it just is an overall busted uncommon card.
It's good in every deck. The card's just generically extremely strong. So yeah, I'm intimately familiar with the card, having played 2 copies of it in my league deck for the majority of my matches. And Pierre-Marc's going to blitz this year. He says, I want to get aggressive. Let's just throw almost everything in here. Probably not the 1/1.
Yeah, so this means that the aerial boost is going to end up getting him. So that means that Adam can kind of pick off any creature that he wants to. I'm assuming it's going to be the Knight by blocking the Strix on the Knight and then aerial boosting the Strix.
Yeah, so he is going to be able to kill off this Strobe Knight here, but not before it killed the Elspeth and made 2 tokens. So, I think Pierre-Marc obviously wants to keep his Strobe Knight, but he can live with it dying with all that it's done for 3 mana.
Yeah, he's going to have to block first. And so Adam's sort of hovering over the aerial boost, reading it. I think you probably have to trade off the 1/1 token with the 1/1 token and then try to...
Yeah, he saw...
I see.
He saw Stoke the Flames before, so maybe... Adam's thinking there's a Stoke the Flames there, but now that he's tapped his thing, he knows it's not good.
So what he does is he aerial boosts the 1/1 to keep that, and then trades off the 2/2 with the 2/2. It clears the board a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Strix wasn't insanely important. It was more important to make sure he got the Strobe Knight off the board, and if he got to keep one of his creatures by doing that, he decided to do it.
So it looks like we've got 3 removal spells here for Adam. And I had mentioned it earlier in the game that this looked like it was a fast matchup because 2 guys trying to kill each other as fast as we can. It's turn 7, and we're at 18 life on both sides of the board.
I think this game might be a slog until somebody draws something super impactful, because Pierre-Marc's got 3 lands and an Abrade here. And Adam, we know, has removal spells that he presumably does not want to use on 1/1s. So We may be sitting around until somebody draws a high impact card
Yeah,
here.
so it seems.
See, now this is where I would want Crackle with power, right?
What about something like an exotic pets? How does that sound?
That could swing the game. I mean, it's 2 damage a turn guaranteed. But here's a Raiju.
Oh wow.
But
That's gonna end up eating obviously
well,
one of the kill spells, but
wonders
not before
intervention.
it ends up putting a. It's gonna put a 1/1 counter on a 1/1, and then it's also gonna end up getting in for an extra damage.
That's it's bringing 4 damage, you know, onto the board here, even if it's dying. So
Mm-hmm.
well, it's bringing 2 extra damage, and on top of the 1/1s. So yeah, nice top deck here. I mean, okay, so he's leaving back his 1/1 here. He says, "I don't." He says, "I want to make sure you don't gain life here. I don't want to. If you kill my
Something
Raiju,
to
I don't want to be
consider
in a racing scenario."
is that if Adam wants to spend both his kill spells, he can take 0 damage this turn. I don't know if he wants to spend it on what will eventually be a 2/2 token, but if he does choose to, then he won't deploy the fish this turn, but it will essentially sort of bring him into the lead with his exotic pets.
Yeah, neither person's life total is under peril here just yet. I imagine Adam just wants to play his pets here, but he might
It
value
looks like he's gonna
he might
use the
value two
intervention. It
life.
looks,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, in theory, he'd want to do that before the trigger resolves, but it looks
Yeah, he saw some of the
opportunity.
explosive nature of Pierre-Marc and his pump spells. He said, "Let me just every point of damage is going to matter here." He identified
Mm-hmm.
that every single creature that gets in, he has direct damage. He has pump spells that pump up by a lot, not little pump spells. So every point matters. And Pierre-Marc's drawn an unimpressive Shatter the Source here, 6 damage. That may have
Hey,
to
it's
end
a
up
kill spell, right?
going going to something with way less than 6 here. So is this Capricorn
Yep.
Courtyard just an Evolving Wilds for our planes? Is that
I believe it is. It also gains a life, which
yeah
apparently is going to be relevant here. But
yeah? It's
yep,
deck thinning as
just a
they say.
planes.
Yeah. So not a fixer, but just like a fetch land, but only for planes.
That's true. Cut short, sitting in hand here. We've drawn that once again.
All right, well, here's our friend the Crunch, which is probably going to eat a removal.
Yeah, once it attacks, that does also mean that Pierre-Marc has to offer the trade with the 1/1 into the 1/1 lifelinker. In theory, that means that Adam's not going to block, but a Witching Well off the top is not exactly Tamio's Epiphany, but about as close as you're going to get. 2 lands to the bottom. Wow, that's worth drawing 4 cards.
Yeah, that's almost a Tamio's Epiphany right there. All right.
Realistically, it's kind of what his Tamio's Epiphanies have been, right? Where it's, scry 1 or 2 to the bottom, draw 2 of the top 4 cards. He just did
Yeah,
the same thing.
and
Scry
I
2 to the
mean,
bottom and drew
Tamio's
2
Epiphany.
cards.
Obviously, it's still good on turn 4, but like turn 4, you don't always know what you're gonna want exactly. The
Mm-hmm.
Scry 4 gets more valuable the later you go into the game.
That's true. That's true.
But by the time you're at this point, you know exactly what you're looking for. On turn 4, you might not always know exactly what you're after, but here he knows what
I'm
he
really going to
wants.
be interested to see if Pierre-Marc ends up sort of, quote, playing around the cut short once again. It looks like he's not going to, he could end up abrading, one of the tokens. It looks like he's going to, in theory, walk right into it here.
Well, crunch number 2 was drawn, so there won't be much crunching available, I suppose, if Adam wants to spend removals here.
Yeah. The last card he picked up off the Witching Well was also the Weatherlight Geist, which not a terribly impressive creature, but a 2-power flyer, it's going to get the job done.
Yeah, obviously, if Adam knew that Pierre-Marc had exactly the crunch, he might have traded off for the 1/1 and then killed the crunch to make sure it didn't attack again. But Adam again, he has 3 guaranteed damage here every turn, which is
Yeah.
going to get Pierre-Marc down. I mean, Pierre-Marc does have Abrade and Shatter the Source, which he does not want to use on these 1/1s, but may end up having to Abrade one of them at some point here.
And then obviously, if Pierre-Marc has nothing, which we know he doesn't, he's currently on a 3-turn clock. He takes 3 damage this turn. The flyer that Adam's going to deploy turns into a 2-turn clock now.
Yeah,
so that means that Adam's got to do something.
This one's going to hit the Abrade though. This 2/3 is going to get. He's deemed that's good enough to Abrade.
Yeah, I think with 3 damage, you're not going to get too many better things than a 3.
All right, so he's got a Rimrock Knight here, which can help him push damage. Obviously, doesn't block, but can help him get some damage through. So
yeah, interestingly enough, right? Obviously, Adam's got a little bit of life to play with, so he's going to trade off the token for token, which makes some sense. And that means that the Crunch isn't going to be able to be played. But now, after that trade off, the Rimrock Knight is, that's 7 damage coming in next turn if Adam doesn't have anything. Currently bluffing an island in hand.
Yeah, and Pierre-Marc's got the Shatter the Source, so if Adam wants to continue to attack with the 1/1s and just try and play a blocker, that's not gonna quite work. But Adam can also just leave back the Lantern Bearer to trade with the Rimrock Knight if he wishes. That's probably something he'd be
We picked up a Broker's Initiate, which is probably a relatively good draw for Adam. He doesn't realize that he's going to likely pick it off because it's a 5/5 attacking in every turn, but looks like a relatively good draw off the top of the deck.
Yeah, so this is actually going to turn quite nicely for Pierre-Marc here. He's going to be able to kill this Broker's Initiate, and then he's going to be able to get him for 7.
Yeah, now, notably, that means that the Rimrock Knight does not do lethal on its own, and obviously the Crunch does need a friend to attack with. So there's a little bit of sort of just turmoil on his board. He needs everything to sort of align as it is. But a Stoke the Flames off the top or a Crackle of Power, if it was in the deck, would get him the win here.
Crackle, well, we'll just say Krenko is plenty good enough draw here when he's trying to close.
Oh yeah, quite a good one.
So Adam's under siege here. He needs to find something.
Ooh, what about a Study Break?
Okay, Study Break will tap, the Crunch, or he could tap. He could knight the Knight and the Krenko, and then the Crunch can't attack. So
yeah, I kind of like that, right? So he get to attack all 3 in here, deal 3 damage. He's got the Study Break to end up tapping things down, which looks pretty good. He might even choose to do that on upkeep.
And from what I recall, he has an Inkling Summoning and Intro to Annihilation. So
yes, I think so.
Those can be useful as well. So he actually gets to basically fully attack here.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think if there's any way that he can get around tapping some things now and holding, some things back, blocking only with the Lantern Bearer and allowing him maybe to use the Inkling Summoning plus the backside of the Lantern Bearer. I don't think it's there. I think he's got to end up using the Study Break on his opponent's turn in order to stay alive.
That's quite the draw here, because normally when you're facing down 3 threats, something that taps 2 creatures is not good enough, but when it basically takes all the creatures out of combat.
Do Krenko's goblins come in attacking?
No. They just... So he's left back a Lantern Bearer here. Interesting.
Yeah, so get this. Assuming that Pierre-Marc has nothing, what can happen is he can actually let attacks go and then can trade off the Lantern Bearer. Oh, he would have had to do this on the last turn. What he could have done is he could have used the Study Break on his own turn to tap things down and play the Inkling Summoning, and that would have meant that that Pierre-Marc couldn't have attacked all out. Otherwise, he'd be dead in the backswing.
So with this use of Study Break, he's actually inviting an attack from the Rimrock Knight here, which is a little bit surprising because he could have just, like I said, tapped the Rimrock Knight instead of the Crunch, and it basically taps the Crunch, essentially.
Well, I think what he wants to do is he does want to trade off, because my 1/1 for your 3/1 is quite good trade for me, but that 1 power never really leaves the battlefield. He's got mana to spare, and so 3 mana next turn in order to put that 1 power back on the battlefield, that's nothing to him.
Yeah, so very fortuitous for Adam that he got his Inkling Summoning rather than his Intro to Annihilation, because Pierre-Marc drew a Disdainful Stroke for turn, which can hit the Annihilation, but not the Inkling.
Absolutely can. So, yeah, well, then a good choice. He had no idea, but good choice for him.
With what we know about Adam's curve, Disdainful Stroke is, it does counter like Elspeth, Rabble-Rousing, and all that, but Adam's curve is quite low. Adam can win without casting expensive spells. We've seen that already. But so Disdainful Stroke, again, this situational counterspell drawn at the wrong time here. Not going to be of use this turn.
I think Adam has used up all of his kill spells as he just sort of scanned through his graveyard. I don't think he's got too many more. Maybe there's a bounce that I'm forgetting about, but he's going to need some way to put damage on the board pretty much right away. Maybe the Silver Flame Squire +2/+2 on one of the fish, that would work.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he doesn't die to this Crunch, he's got a 2-turn clock with the fish. But
oh. Wow. tempted by the Auric, a perfect draw that's going to end up getting countered. But wow, what a hit.
Yeah, so the disdainful stroke is going to come in clutch here, killing that thing. So let's see how he decides to sequence the turn here. I mean, this is coming
Notably,
right
he
down to
can't
it. This
play all
is
three. Yeah,
this is
what a nail biter.
this is what we wanted to see here. We saw, especially Adam, some of his games were not particularly competitive. Throughout the first couple rounds, but we are getting the pretty much the two best decks at the table today, and we're going right down to the wire here. So
Notably, the Lantern Bear does not need to be cast this turn in order to still be lethal. So we're going to see the Tempted by the Auric in order to attempt to steal off the Krenko. That's going to hit Disdainful Stroke. What's the last card in Pierre-Marc's hand? The Shadow of the Sorcerer.
He just has a mountain.
Oh, just a mountain. Oh, he used the Shadow Source earlier.
Yeah, he used
so
it.
This means that the two fish can still attack in, assuming that Pierre-Marc has nothing. And then the Inkling summoning can block the crunch, and he's got lethal on board. The question is, does he think that mountain is a spell? If he thinks it's anything, like deal 1 damage, whatever you can do, give something haste, or we saw Rimrock Knight, 2 copies of that already. Any of those cards leave Adam dead if he attacks with both his fish.
This is where some people would enter into full control mode, to bluff an instant. Pierre-Marc has not done that, so if Adam notices, he will notice that it's just passing right through. So he said, I don't want to leave myself dead to 1 removal. So I'm going to leave back my fish here just in case.
Well, and if he has 0 removal spells, blocking with the fish still allows for lethal, right? Like if he just goes to attack.
Pierre-Marc's drawn another land here, so it looks like this is going to work out in Adam's favor here, as long as he leaves one of his creatures alive here, or as long as he leaves the 2/1 alive.
I think you still have to attack with Krenko. You can you can optionally attack with the crunch, but it's not blocking, so it might as well be attacking.
So he says, I'm going to play around removal, but if he has a pump spell, he's got me. But we now know that Adam's going to get this as long as he suits up the Lantern Bearer here onto one of his creatures. He's gonna pull this out. And Pierre-Marc has now gone into full control mode, but might be a little late because he didn't do it last turn. So he's gonna make
any Aldebraid or 1 damage spell.
Looks like Adam is going to join the Hall of 2-time league champions.
There it is. Congratulations.
So, he's in rarefied air now. Multi-time league winner. So congratulations to him and his blue-white deck on winning the Megadraft for March of the Machine League. Congratulations to all the players, especially these 2 that made it to the finals. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you for the next Megadraft.